Welcome in, guys. This is the first part of about a 50-part math course where what we're going to be doing is we're going to be teaching off the teaching pages of our book here. You definitely do not need to grab a copy to still learn a ton, but if you want to be able to do practice problems after I run through the concepts and go through a few examples, definitely highly recommend it. You can find it in the link below. But otherwise, our first three videos here are going to be going over some really simple test tricks, which can give you a really easy way to kind of like cheat your way to a few extra points on the test. If you enjoy the video, leave a like and subscribe for the other parts. If you have any content you'd like to see covered, drop it in the comments below. Let's get right into backsolving. And this first one here is simply called backsolving. Now, all backsolving really is very simply taking our answer choices and plugging them back into our original expression and checking to see which one is correct. On the SAT, we're always going to be given 4 answer choices for all of the multiple choice questions, and we very simply know that one of those 4 is going to be correct. So if we get comfortable using those and plugging them back into the problems, we can begin to solve many questions that otherwise we just may feel a little bit stuck on. Although it's great to know the technical way of doing your problems, no one checks your work on the SAT, and all we really care about at the end of the day is you getting as many questions right as possible. So even if you don't know how to technically do it, if we can solve it via backsolving, that's all that really matters at the end of the day for the SAT. Now, the place we can really just use this is when we're dealing with numbers. When we're dealing with variables, we'll talk about another test trick in the next chapter here, but with numbers alone, we simply plug them back in reverse. Now, one of the most important things here is this first step. This is to start with B or C. Answer choices on the SAT when you're given numbers are going to be ordered either from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. So if we start with one of these two middle values and we immediately can tell that, well, I need a bigger value or a smaller value, we often can just go ahead and eliminate 2 answer choices right away. Rather than if we start with A or D, we may have to check every single answer choice without really having a good indication of, well, maybe I just immediately need to go higher or lower than these and being able to eliminate some like we can with using B or C. Now, the second thing, as I said, we're pretty much just plugging these values back in. Nothing conceptually super difficult or crazy here, but we just plug it back in. We see if it works. If there's any other unknowns that we need to figure out, we of course have to solve for that as well. Very simply, if we find the correct answer, that's it. We're done. You don't have to do anything else. If not, cross it off. And then as I said, if you start with B or C and you can look at it and you're like, oh, I immediately need a bigger value, sometimes that can let you just identify your right answer right off the get-go. Otherwise, it can help you by eliminating other answer choices that you otherwise would have to consider. And then we're just plugging and chugging our way through the different answer choices. Now, as we go through more chapters, there are going to be certain question types where I'm going to strongly recommend exclusively using backsolving over solving the problems the more technically correct way, because what you always have to think about on the SAT is they are creating these wrong answer choices based off of very common mistakes that they can anticipate students making. So the other nice part about this is we remove our ability to create those common mistakes either in our algebra steps or our factoring or our foiling or misinterpreting a function just simply by plugging the values in. We remove those kind of really common mistakes we otherwise can make. So what we're really just going to kind of do here now is basically just run through 2 examples, illustrate the concept. That way, as you guys go through and do the rest of the practice, you hopefully feel a lot more comfortable with the foundational elements of this strategy. Now, for our first example here, we're told if the square root of x plus 10 minus 2 times the square root of x minus 2 equals 0, what is the value of x? The quickest and easiest way I honestly can solve this problem, and even when I'm taking the test, this is how I do these, is I simply take the answer choices and plug them back in. Yes, we could go ahead and square both sides of this equation, but it often can get a little bit messy. Some students don't feel comfortable with, well, am I supposed to multiply or distribute this through? How do I handle it, especially if we have different variables? Am I squaring the negative? What happens to the negative under here? There's a lot of little common mistakes that we otherwise can make, but very simply, if we just take our answer choices and plug them in, it's virtually impossible to mess up the problem. So here we'll just start with x equals 6. So very simply, instead of my x value, I plug 6 in. Once again, plug 6 in. Then I'm just going to simplify everything underneath the square root. So that's how I get to the square root of 16 and the square root of 4 from my 6 minus 2. Then I'm going to take the square roots of both values. So I get 4 minus 2 times 2 because that's the square root of 4. And well, 4 minus 4 equals 0. Because I get to this point of 0 equals zeros, both sides of the equation being equivalent to each other, that tells me that I have found the right answer. If you ever go to this and you basically get an expression which is not mathematically true, that's going to let you know that you did not find your correct answer there. Now, for our second example, the exact same thing once again. As I said, this is a very easy, straightforward method. The most difficult part is you're going through tests, starting to get comfortable with when you, especially you personally, should be applying this for certain question types and when you should not be doing so. What you really will kind of discover and when it becomes important for you to do it is you take practice tests, is you use diagnostic sheets, and you notice that you continually make significant mistakes on a certain question type. If there's a way that we can easily back solve those, that's a great way to start eliminating those mistakes if you're unable to fix them otherwise. So here we're told if 3 over x plus 1 equals 2 over x, what is the value of x? Same thing here. We're just going to go through the one with the correct answer choice, but all we would do is we would basically just start with B or C here, plug it in, check, see if we need a bigger or smaller value, and then work from there. But here we'll just start with our correct value of 2. So I'm simply just going to plug 2 in for x in both of those locations. So that's how I get my 3 over 2 plus 1 equals 2 over 2. I simplify down. This is going to be 3 over 3 equals 2 over 2. Well, this is 1 equals 1, and that lets me find the right answer. So definitely take a shot at some of the practice questions in this section. Once you get the hang of it, though, you definitely can kind of move on to the next one. As you can see, nothing super conceptually tricky here. It's just a great thing to be aware of and start doing, because this is something a lot of students naturally just don't do, because for the vast majority of you in your math classes, you never get multiple choice tests or quizzes. So you're just used to doing all of the steps on your own, and starting to use the answer choices in this way is a super helpful, simple thing that can really start to improve our math score. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like as well as subscribe for more SAT content. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below and check out in the video description for more resources to help you in your prep process.